Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Praeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna, devotees. It's grateful to still be here in Houston. You never know where Krishna will take you, so I'm very happy I'm still here. And I plan to be here until next May, Krishna willing. So I'm looking forward to getting to know many of you better. Today we are continuing from the third chapter of the 11th canto, in which King Nimi is speaking with the 9 Yogendras. And we have heard from Antariksha first about what is the illusory energy. This was Maharaj Nimi's first question in this chapter. So Sri Antariksha described how the Lord creates this material world for the living entities to either enjoy sense gratification or to try to achieve ultimate liberation. He described how the Lord eventually winds up this whole cosmic manifestation and it all blazes up in a giant fire by the power of Anantashesha. And then Maharaj Nimi inquired about how one can become free from this illusory energy. And so next we are hearing now from Sri Prabudha of the 9 Yogendras. And we heard a nice description of how there is no permanent happiness anywhere in the material world, whether in the heavenly planets or here. Regardless of one's position, material happiness is always fading. So one should eventually come to the intelligent conclusion that I need help. And when we need help, we need to approach someone who can help us. So we need to approach a spiritual master. And Prabudha described what are the qualifications of a spiritual master. One who has realized the scriptures by deliberation and can also convince others of the conclusions of the scriptures. So now he's describing the qualities and the activities of a disciple. What should a qualified disciple act like, and what should he do and how should he act? So we're getting some specific descriptions on what a disciple should act like. So we'll recite the Sanskrit. Sarvatratmeshwaran viksham Kaivalyam aniketatam Vivikta chiravasanam Santosham yena kenachit Sarvatratmeshwaran viksham Kaivalyam aniketatam Vivikta chiravasanam Santosham yena kenachit. Please recite. Sarvatratmeshwaran viksham Sarvatratmeshwaran viksham Santosham yena kenachit Sarvatratmeshwaran viksham Kaivalyam aniketatam Vivikta chiravasanam Santosham yena kenachit. Okay, word for word. Sarvatra, everywhere. Atma, for one's true self. Ishvara, and for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anviksham, meditation by keeping continuously in view. Kaivalyam, solitude. Aniketatam, having no fixed residence. Viviktachira, scraps of cloth found in unfrequented places. Vasanam, wearing. Santosham, satisfaction. Yena kena chit, with anything. Translation and purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. One should practice meditation by constantly seeing oneself to be an eternal cognizant spirit soul and seeing the Lord to be the absolute controller of everything. To increase one's meditation, one should live in a secluded place and give up false attachment to one's home and household paraphernalia. Giving up the decorations of the temporary material body, one should dress himself with scraps of cloth found in rejected places, or with the bark of trees. In this way, one should learn to be satisfied in any material situation. Purport. Kaivalyam, or living in a secluded place, indicates a place free from material disturbances. Therefore, one should live in the association of Vaishnavas, where the common goal is advancement in Krishna consciousness. Especially in the Kali Yuga, if one tries to remain physically isolated from all others, the result will be degradation or insanity. Aniketatam means that one should not be intoxicated by the ephemeral satisfaction of one's home sweet home, which will vanish at any moment by the unforeseen circumstances produced by one's previous activities. In this age, it is not actually possible to dress in tree bark in modern cities, nor to wear mere scraps of cloth. Previously, human culture accommodated those practicing tapasya, or penances, in the interest of spiritual advancement. In this age, however, the most urgent necessity is for preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita throughout human society. Therefore, it is recommended that Vaishnavas dress with clean and neat cloth, covering the body decently, so that the conditioned souls will not be frightened or repulsed by the severe penances of the Vaishnavas. In the Kali Yuga, the conditioned souls are extremely attached to material sense gratification, and extreme austerities are not appreciated, but are instead considered abominable denials of the flesh. Of course, austerity is required for spiritual advancement, but the practical example set by Srila Prabhupada in successfully spreading the Krishna consciousness movement was that all material things should be used to attract people to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, Vaishnavas may at times adopt ordinary dress to serve the higher principle of distributing Krishna consciousness. In any case, one should learn to be satisfied in any material situation, so as to prepare for the moment of death. According to Bhagavad Gita, at the time of death, the particular consciousness we have created in this life will carry us to our future situation. Therefore, human life can be seen as a type of practice for successfully fixing one's mind on the absolute truth during the severe trials of death. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So this is how one should serve the spiritual master, according to Sri Prabhupada. That one should practice meditation, seeing oneself as the eternal cognizant spirit soul, and seeing the Lord to be the controller of everything. So that's the principle here. And then there are some details describing how one can go about doing this. And we see from the purport, it's not actually practical or even possible in this age to dress oneself in tree bark or to use rejected scraps of cloth. But we can go to Goodwill and get some rejected cloth. That's what I learned on traveling Sankirtan. But the point here is this line: to increase one's meditation. Is the details of what we accept we should choose based on if it increases our meditation and if it is favorable for increasing the meditation of others. We see from the purport that preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita throughout human society is the most urgent necessity of this age. And if we want to do that, we can't be dressing like crazy people. Even just wearing something like this, people think is crazy. What to speak of wearing rejected scraps of cloth or tree bark. These things are unheard of. The 6 Goswamis did this, but the society of the day was able to support them. There was this culture that it was understood, these are sadhus. But now if we see people with torn cloth living on the street, we look down on them. Because generally in this world, those people are mentally out of it, or have serious addiction issues, or some major issue with self-control, a mental or sense control that they are infirmed by, and so they're living on the street by force, not by choice. So people don't understand the culture of a sadhu, so we need to present ourselves in such a way that people can relate with. This is the principle of yukta vairagya. Srila Rupa Goswami explains this in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anasakta savishayan yatarham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So using everything for the service of Krishna, this is proper renunciation. We, in a neophyte stage of Krishna consciousness, we might think that renunciation is to be without all of the things that we used to find comfort and pleasure in. And this can be helpful at the beginning of spiritual life, is to seek detachment and knowledge on their own. But when we come to a more mature understanding of bhakti yoga practice, we understand that that detachment and knowledge are natural byproducts of a serious practice of bhakti. We don't need to seek detachment on its own. And in fact, people are going to think we're insane if we unnecessarily focus on external tapasya. We see in the Bhagavad Gita, in the divisions of faith, Krishna is describing the different types of penance. Text 19, he says, penance performed out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. And penance out of pride or for gaining respect, honor, and worship is said to be in the mode of passion. So if we're damaging our bodies unnecessarily, if we're doing some sort of penance so we can lord it over others and show off that we're so austere, we're so powerful, standing on our toes like Hiranyakashipu. We need to be careful, what is our motivation for doing these things? And ultimately, the highest form of renunciation, as I was explaining from Rupa Goswami, is using everything for the service of Krishna. So we accept whatever is favorable for spiritual life, for remembering Krishna, and we reject whatever is unfavorable. That's the most essential regulative principle in Krishna conscious practice. Because ultimately we're trying to remember Krishna. And this is the whole point of human life. This is the whole point of this material creation, is to cultivate Krishna consciousness, to become attached to Krishna, so that at the time of leaving our body, we can't help but think of Krishna. And actually, one of the best ways to do that is through sharing Krishna consciousness with others. How does it go? What is Vishnu Smaranam preceded by? Shravanam Kirtanam. So if we ourselves engage in hearing about Krishna, naturally we will engage in Kirtanam, which is talking about Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. And those two processes naturally lead to Vishnu Smaranam, remembrance of Krishna, or Vishnu. And especially as we get more of a taste for these things, we can't help but share it. That's the great aspect of really engaging with a Krishna conscious practice. Is there's Krishna's Rasaraj. He's the king of rasa, the king of mellows. All flavors, all moods are contained within him. And when we connect with him, all of the mundane emotions and experiences we used to have with romance, with losing loved ones, with all these dramas, just like we see in the movies, these things, they don't really have taste. This world is trying to find taste here is like chewing up already chewed gum. There's no real flavor there. We might think there is. Krishna is very kind to allow us to think there's some pleasure here because we want to forget him. But in reality, there's no flavor here. So we get the real taste when we connect with Krishna. Prabhupada says in the intro to Nectar of Devotion that practicing Krishna consciousness is like flipping the one switch that turns on lights everywhere. It makes everything in your life immediately brighten. Your relationships, your job, your family, your everything. Even just taking care of your physical body can become a great joy because we're doing it for Krishna. We're doing it for the person we love as a service. So we get this taste from hearing about Krishna and especially from associating with other people, with other Vaishnavas who also have a taste. And when we get this taste, it's like overflowing. It's like pouring honey into a cup that it's just overflowing. You've got to put it in another cup, or you're gonna not be able to contain anymore. We empty ourselves out by sharing, and then we get more room to fill with this joyful taste in Krishna consciousness. As Vaisheshika Prabhu likes to explain, we must endeavor for this taste in Krishna consciousness because it's so powerful. Just this one drop of taste for Krishna consciousness, it can overflood the whole of Houston. It can overflood the whole of Texas, the whole of the United States. It can overflood the whole material universe. Just one drop of taste. Because Krishna is infinite. There's no limit to what we can experience in connection with him. So this is how we increase our meditation, not necessarily adopting all of the details of the scripture. We can read in the Bhagavatam some things that might seem very impractical. And it's true, there are things that aren't relevant for us to practice in this age. And we need to be careful. The Shastra, the scriptures are like a pharmacy, and there's many different instructions. So we need to have careful guidance. In fact, this section we're reading about is about accepting a spiritual master. And so we need guidance from others to know how to navigate these teachings. Because if we try to adopt everything we read, we're going to be led astray. Trying to dress ourselves in tree bark and go tell people about Krishna. So everything that we accept for our Krishna conscious practice should be done under proper guidance. And it should be done according to the principle we see in the first line of this verse. That it should be to increase our meditation of understanding I'm an eternal servant of Krishna, Krishna is the supreme controller and my best friend, and he's the enjoyer. Everything is meant for him. So what we accept in our devotional life should be directed towards this goal of this increased remembrance and meditation on who is Krishna, who am I, what's our relationship. And in my own experience of Krishna consciousness, actually as Prabuddha will explain some verses later, one of my favorite verses in the whole Bhagavatam, because it's so relevant to me. He says, Parasparanukathanam pavanam bhagavad yasha mito ratir mitastushtir nivritir mita atmana. He says we should learn to associate with the devotees of the Lord by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. And this process is most purifying. And as devotees thus develop their loving friendships with one another, they're able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all of our suffering. So it actually is very easy to get a taste in Krishna consciousness. It's very easy to make advancement and be supported if we connect ourselves with sincere devotees and engage in loving exchanges with them. And this this talking about Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, even indirectly just sharing our own realizations about our growth and split, hearing from each other, this process is where I personally get the most taste in Krishna consciousness, and I feel immense support. And it allows us to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all our misery in this world. We might think that having a very nice home situation, we're living in a mansion at the farm right now. One might get attached to living in a very opulent environment like that. We have a huge farm. But we should know that this is all simply to be used for Krishna. This is the principle of yukta vairagya. Whatever situation we may find ourselves in, we use it for the service of Krishna. And we accept that these are all temporary situations, and we engage them all in the service of Krishna, and just to be grateful with what we do have. Which is what the last line of this verse is saying, is santosham yena kenachit. We should be satisfied with any situation, with anything. Whether we are living in this palatial temple, whether we're living in a small shack in the Caribbean, or a small town in somewhere in rural Mayapur, wherever we may find ourselves. If we have these sweet relationships with Vaishnavas, this is my experience, is that we're supported, we can get consistent taste. If we're struggling, we're lifted up. And by the association of sincere devotees, we can stay on track. If we have some crazy idea, we can present it to our fellow friends and see, what do you think about this? Am I crazy? Am I crazy for thinking this? Yeah. And this is especially true with, I have seen this line about renunciation, extreme austerities. I wanted to touch on what is a proper way, what's a mode of goodness way to go about engaging in austerities. So we talked about the principle of yukta vairagya, engaging everything in the service of Krishna. This is the best way to stay detached and to be properly renounced, not to give up everything we have, but to use it for Krishna. If you have a nice phone, that's great. Use it to call people and talk about Krishna. And if you have a big mansion, invite people over and do kirtan. But then Krishna also describes very practical tips on austerity in the mode of goodness. So just before the 2 verses I read earlier, Krishna explains the threefold austerity that we can go about. So as opposed to torturing ourselves, trying to sleep on nails, trying to walk barefoot everywhere, trying to fast unnecessarily, causing great damage to our body. And actually, we don't only just cause damage to our own body, we disturb the supersoul within us. We're actually hurting Krishna. This is what Krishna explains earlier in the Gita. So we need to be careful to understand what type of austerity are we accepting. Because austerity can actually harden our heart. If we do too much austerity, it will close our heart to these loving, sweet relationships with Vaishnavas. It'll make us proud and have a separatist mood that I'm better, I'm more powerful. And then we won't be able to get that taste. And then what to speak of going out to share with others if our heart is hard, we can't have sweet relationships with the devotees around us. How are we going to want to invite someone back to what we're doing here? This is a preaching movement. We want to bring people to this because we found this to be so wonderful. But if our reality is not so wonderful, if we're separating from everyone, closing our heart, trying to be better than everyone, I say this because it's my own reality. I say this to purify myself. How will we really be convinced to bring someone back if we know that I don't have these sweet relationships that the Shastra describes? So we need to be very careful. And so studying these verses from the 17th chapter can help us know what is proper penance. So Krishna describes the austerity of the body, speech, and mind. So the austerity of the body is worship of superiors, great reverence for those in a higher position than ourselves, the Supreme Lord, Brahmins, the spiritual master, even our parents. Very interesting. Superiors like the father and mother. And in cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, and nonviolence. So this is the austerity of the body. Not that I'm going to sleep on nails, or I'm going to fast 2 days in a row, or I'm not going to sleep. Real austerity of the body is in respecting our superiors, staying clean, having a simple life, practicing celibacy, practicing nonviolence. This is austerity of the body in the mode of goodness. We don't need to unnecessarily push our physical bodies. So it's very simple, actually. And austerity of speech is speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not agitating to others, regularly reciting Vedic literature. So coming to the Bhagavatam class every day, speaking about the Bhagavatam class, not lying, saying things that are pleasing to hear. This is how we engage our speech in the mode of goodness. And we keep our mind in the mode of goodness through practicing satisfaction, simplicity, gravity, self-control, and purification of one's existence. These are really nice verses for practical tips on how we can engage in austerity. And the whole point of doing these austerities, again, is to remember Krishna and to help others to remember Krishna. So the purport was also explaining that we can adopt things that aren't necessarily seen as Vaishnav culture in order to spread Krishna consciousness. We can cook foods that are in the mode of goodness, but aren't necessarily rice, dal, and chapatis. We can adopt clothing that is more familiar with others in the outside world, so we can relate with them better. We can speak in such a way and use relevant examples that people will understand. You can talk about the flying palace in the Bhagavatam, or these they're wonderful stories, but sometimes people might not so much relate to them. So you can we can tax our minds, how can we present the Shastra in such a way that it can relate better with people in the outside world. So ultimately, just to emphasize my own realization, whatever little I do have at this point after a few years of practice of Krishna consciousness, is that we should be careful what we adopt in our life so that we can remember Krishna. And for me, that has come through sincere association with other devotees, reading together, sharing our realizations together, doing kirtan together, just trying to share our lives with the other devotees around us. Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki. So it's last point I'll make here, and then I'd like to open it up to realizations and things that stuck out. So we need to, it is an individual process, this Krishna consciousness. It's not that there's one black and white way to practice for everyone. We're individuals, and so we need good guidance to know what is good for us, and we need to seriously inquire about what is my nature, what is actually beneficial for me to advance in Krishna consciousness. In terms of ashram, what kind, should I live a renounced life? Should I live in the material world and keep my practice going? We should try to be very sincere and understand what is actually the most beneficial for me. And just understand that this process is extremely individual. So with expert guidance from a guru, as Prabhupada is saying here, we will be able to achieve the ultimate goal of life, go back to Krishna, and on the way there, it'll be a blast. We don't have to grind our way back to Godhead. It can be a joyful process. So that is my realization I can share with you all. We have a little bit of time. Do we have a microphone? Okay. If we have realizations, something that stood out from what we discussed.
Nice explanation. You said one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, of course. There is one verse in Bhagavad Gita, Matchit Matkata Prana, Bodhayante Parasparam. That also resembles. Now, this Kaivalyam Narkayate, there is one word in Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it is contradicting this statement, Kaivalyam Aniketatam.
Kaivalyam Aniketatam. Solitude and having no fixed residence. The verse I was sharing is contrary to this?
Kaivalyam Narakayate.
Okay.
It's a hellish.
Kaivalyam Narakayate.
Whether it is contradicting itself, I don't know, I'm asking.
Okay. Which it's hellish to be Kaivalyam, to be alone? Is that what it's saying? Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's said that one should prefer to live in a cage or surrounded by fire than to be separated from the devotees. This is how wonderful it is to be around devotees. There's no more hellish situation. And especially for those who have the real taste of associating with devotees. If we separate from them, we feel great sadness. And this is actually a major way that we can recognize, am I making progress in spiritual life? Hare Krishna. If we feel separation, if we feel a longing to be around devotees, this is actually a great sign that we're advancing. But yeah, definitely, there's apparent contradictions in Shastra. That's why we need to understand that this is like a pharmacy, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we need a pharmacist a spiritual master to tell us which instructions are appropriate for our situation. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay,
It was louder before.
Yeah, you turned it down. Hare Krishna. Okay. Yeah, I was interested in the term kaivalyam, and he was saying that in the purport, he says, it indicates a place free from material disturbance, and then that in the age of Kali Yuga, if one tries to remain physically isolated from all others, the result will be degradation or insanity. I just thought that was really profound, that our mental condition is so degraded that even if we're just by ourselves for too long, we just go insane. We can't even like focus and keep our mind sane and stable.
Yeah, especially in Kali Yuga. Yeah, if you go try to be alone, live alone somewhere in this world, you see the shops that are open. It's insanity. Of course we're going to become insane. It's like every billboard you see is illicit sex, meat eating, gambling. That's like all there is in the world now. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When you were reading the Bhagavad Gita, I was really appreciating just the wealth of knowledge that's available to us. Because it seems like in Kali Yuga, especially here in the West, we have this impersonal idea of what like spiritual life is. So people actually, their idea of austerity is already in the mode of ignorance, because they're thinking it's just to renounce everything and be away with it. And then you would come to the conclusion of, I need to do all these things like not eat and wear tree bark and not live away from everyone. So that's like the natural conclusion we would come to. So yeah, of course, anyone who's actually adopting these methods and walking around society nowadays, people are just going to say, well, this person's crazy.
Yeah, the people who go around whipping themselves, self-flagellation.
Damaging the body, and actually not realizing that the body is the property of the Lord, and we actually have to maintain it for His service, and rather use it to go and preach, spread the knowledge. So it's amazing the opportunity we have.
Yeah. What can we figure out with our own mental power? Yeah. It's the difference between I wanted to share, this is the difference between the ascending process of knowledge and the descending process of knowledge. Is that if we try the ascending process, that's saying, I'm just going to depend on my own mind and try to understand what is the absolute truth. And Krishna says, Kleshodika tarastesham avyasaktasya chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukam dehavad viravapyate. For one who's embodied, this impersonal process is always difficult. So we should actually consider the descending process. We hear from those who already know. Like you go to a school and you find a professor who's really intelligent in your field, and you learn from him. And it's actually very simple and very joyful because you have a relationship with that person. So yeah, we're very fortunate we have these teachings, and we can, with expert guidance, apply them to our life and in one lifetime achieve the highest perfection. It's inconceivable. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. Hashwant, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Regarding the apparent contradiction in this Kaivalyam Aniketatam, I think it could be that...
Would you be able to take your math? It's hard to hear.
Yeah, I think it could be because of the context. I think here the context is to be careful of matter. In the other one, I think the context could be to be in the devotee association. Is that correct?
To be careful of matter.
Yeah, you mean like being careful of Maya. So that's why I think the context is to say that like try to like make sure you're not too much into Maya, and in the other one I think it's like you try to be in the...
That's a nice point. That's the rounded instruction. Yeah, not that we just go live in the forest, but we should live separated from the general mass of people, and we can do that by staying around devotees. Yeah, that's really nice. Thank you, Prabhu. I'm completely dependent on all of you. We have 10 more minutes, and I want to hear more realizations and thoughts and things that came to mind.
Very nice class, Prabhu. Well, I don't know where I read or heard that even for a sannyasi, when they go preach in new places, like new country, and it's recommended to go with somebody else also, rather than by himself or herself, because they might get, being by yourself for a very long time, then they might themselves get in like trouble. Maya is very strong.
Yeah, thank you. Even Lord Chaitanya himself, he set the example. He traveled with his servant. What was his name? Krishna Das. What was his name? Bala Krishna. I don't remember. Anyway, Lord Chaitanya traveled with a servant when he did his tour of South India. So definitely. Yeah, I was asking Umapati Prabhu this question when he was speaking the other day, that how can we give our association to those who are more entangled in the material world and not be entangled by their association? And he kind of laughed at the question. He's like, what do you mean? You come to the temple, you do your practice, you chant your japa, you read, you do kirtan. It's like he was just totally confident that we are protected if we are daily engaging in Krishna's, if we're associating with Krishna every day, we're fine. But we need other devotees to do that. It's San Kirtan. San is together. We chant together. Radha Krishna Prabhu, can we hear some thoughts from you?
Somebody messed around with the sound volume. Anyway, I think hearing from what you have been saying, we need to take proper association. And I feel generally we don't take good association. We know it's important, but we generally we practice Krishna consciousness, but we are practicing, I would say, instead of practicing at least up to the point of Nishkama Karma Yoga, we practice Sakama. We are attached to many things in this material world, and so we find it very difficult to give it up, or to become austere, or to become detached. But if you have proper association and Vasudeva Bhagavate Bhakti Yoga Prajoja Janayate Ashu Vairagam Jnanam Chahar Ahaitukam. So Jnana and Vairagya will come, as Prabhu was mentioning, Uttama Umapati Prabhu was saying. If you come and associate with the deities and the devotees, morning program, full program, the understanding will come that I have to give these things up. Otherwise, you will never come to that stage, or we will never come to this. We will always have so many desires, and we will keep saying, this is this problem, that's the problem. So I was thinking, as you were mentioning, and I was thinking this is part of the problem. So when there are good association, we should try to get as best the association as possible. We shouldn't take devotees for granted also, because everyone has something to give. So how much do you know of each devotee? When they die, then people say something, but before that we hardly know who they are, what they are. Or we only recognize if they do something nice or something that is sparkling in the sky. But actually many devotees have amazing qualities that we should appreciate, and by appreciating that, we are appreciating Krishna's devotees and make proper advancement.
Thank you. I was thinking that it's like, I used to run cross country, and I was friends with some of the fastest runners. I wasn't involved in cross country, but I was kind of their friends. And then when I started running, I naturally would hang out with them. And they would go really fast, and it really was painful to keep up with them. And there was another group, and they would, because it was I was at a private school, and it was like 300-acre campus with forest everywhere. So we would do these trail runs, and the coach couldn't be with everyone. So there's one group, and they would just run across the street to Wendy's, get themselves a chicken sandwich and a milkshake. But I was with the austere guys. So naturally, I developed, I became really fast comparative to the team. So if we can hang on to those devotees who are very sincere and really want to go back to Godhead, they'll pull us back. Or we can hang out with people who are, we respect all devotees, as you're saying, Prabhu. And Umapati Prabhu emphasized that to me as well. We don't judge devotees, but we should see, where is someone going? What's their trajectory? What kind of trajectory do I want? Thank you, Prabhu. Sarvabhauma Prabhu.
I think it's easier, since I think Radha Krishna was saying that usually people have material desires even with devotional service. So to associate with the motive of pure devotional service is a little difficult, because I think of my own life when I was a wrestler, I associated with really good wrestlers, and it really helped me in that field. But it was easy because I had a material goal, but when you have a spiritual goal, there's more of your energy gets dissipated easier. I mean, to get out of the material world is such an intense, you have to turn your back on you lose your energy. So even though we're in the devotional atmosphere, we're in a beautiful society where there's so many advanced devotees, we may have a difficulty. I'm speaking for myself. It's harder to, it's harder to seek pure association than, as Radha Krishna is saying, if you have sakama, material desires, then you want to drink, so you go to the bar. It's easy to get your material association, but to get out of the material world requires really seeking advanced association, and it's a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lofty goal we're shooting for. It's the highest goal imaginable we're trying to aim for. So yeah, it's extremely difficult. I was thinking your point of seeking pure association. This is something I've been trying to endeavor to take, is to seek out that association. And one thing that I've found, I've been actually blown away that devotees who I see as almost a celebrity, so wonderful, so exalted, I reach out to them and they're so willing to talk and help. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu is one example. I reached out to him. I was aspiring to take initiation from him a while ago. And so I was able to email him, and he was so willing to speak. I was spending time with my brother last year, and he gets a call, and it's from Vaisheshika Prabhu. He said, "Oh, I was just thinking of you. I saw something you made for me on my desk, and I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." I've had this experience with Brahma Tirtha Prabhu. He lives in Gainesville, and so I approached him just wanting his association, and he was so willing to go on walks with me and just give me time. And the one thing that stuck out to me most, this is one of the major reciprocations I've got from someone very senior to me, that has given me confidence that this is not only okay, but actually something that senior devotees take great pleasure in. I was telling him, I'm blown away. You're doing so many things. You're still working. You have a wife, you have a home, you have, he's doing Iskcon Resolve, he's helping with mediating devotee conflicts all over the world. He's the head of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. It's insane how many things Brahmatirtha Prabhu is involved in. And I said, why do you find time to spend with me? I don't understand this. And he immediately said, this is my most important service. I couldn't believe, it really struck me. I knew what he was saying was true and sincere because it struck my heart. And I don't know if I've ever felt so loved and cared for by someone. So that was confirmation for me that we should seek the association of extremely advanced devotees, not be afraid to do so, and we should be assured that they actually take great pleasure in helping. Last thing I'll share is we can actually become even more assured of this if we engage in bringing others up. So whatever little we might know, we can share that with somebody. Just the knowledge that we're eternal and that Krishna is God and that He is our best friend, just those few sentences can change someone's life entirely. So if we share this with others, Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. If we share whatever little we know with others, we will feel great joy in seeing them become happy. And then we can see, oh, this is the same thing that's happening with my seniors in their relationship with me. This is a new realization for me, so I'm excited to share, and I hope that anyone who's not engaged in this way and bringing others up can seriously begin to do so, because it is the most joyful process. Thank you all so much for your kind attention and for letting me speak something of my realization. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna. 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 Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. With that, can you help with this? I need to go.
Yeah, I know how to do it.
Last one to go next.
You took the photo? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. I think this one is they unplugged. This one's unplugged. They moved it over to number 2. So this is the wireless here. And
Wireless is this?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yeah, so it's.
Okay, wireless looks fine. Well, the same level was there. Where's the main one?
This is the main mic here.
Oh, they made the main here,
Yeah, I think so. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
right?
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Let's try this one here.
Why did they put the main here?
I don't know.
Who swapped it? He swapped it on
Yeah,
that day?
they did some changes on there. So usually what he says for me, he turn this all the way down, turn this all the way down, and then check it, like it'll work.
For the wireless, is the same?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram,
This is the
Ram,
one,
Hare Hare. Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Now you can lower the one over there.
Okay.
Because they made, somebody went and changed it.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Okay.
Krishna. Yes.